Four to go here. Adam Hansen says, it seems to me that there's more of an ideological war going on for America than for any other classification of war brought on in the name of safety as an inappropriate response to fear, i.e. safety first. I've struggled overcoming my fears so that I can be in control of my own life. However, this is not the case with someone very close to me. Would you be willing to share an experience of how you overcame a fear of yours so that I may understand another perspective in order to help this person who is close to me? Wow, that's a great question. There's two things I guess I would say to that. I'm not aware that I have any phobias. I don't believe I've ever had any irrational fears. It's not like spiders or anything really sets me off. I have been frightened before, and there have been things I've done that were scary, that required some courage to do. But I think what we're really dealing with here is a two-part issue. And I'll go to the most important part first. I know this is going to sound an odd thing to say, honestly. I don't know how you would really tell somebody else this, but this is what works for me. And I suspect if you get into people who risk their lives routinely, and people in our military or the first responders, I think you'll probably find this is true. And I have to make a note. Somebody just made some comment I really like a lot. So I think the first thing I would say is when I was flying gliders, I had a couple of really just peak world experiences out there. Just moments where I just thought, my God, this is the whole reason I'm alive, is just going to be able to say I did this. And I can't tell you the value of that. I can't tell you the value of basically talking to somebody and getting to the place where I am, where I never expected to have these things happen to me. I've done so many things that are beyond my hopes, and so many things that I think so many humans have spent their entire lives wishing they could do. One of these things is have a hot meal and a warm place to sleep. When you get grateful for that kind of stuff, that does an awful lot. And it's really important to get grateful for that kind of stuff. And for the people that make sure we continue to have those hot meals and a warm and safe place to sleep. I try to think about them every day, if I can. But I guess what I'm trying to say is one of the reasons I don't find myself filled with a fear of dying that I used to have is because I've done enough with my life now that I feel like I've accomplished something important, and it doesn't have to be this whole notoriety or fame thing either. It's just have you done something that makes you feel like your life is worth living. And I think if you can look at your life and say, I've done things that were worth living, then your fear of dying gets significantly reduced. I really do believe that. I've often said to myself, well, this is going to require some courage or some kind of grit to pull this off. And I think about all the 18-year-olds that are out there in Afghanistan and Iraq, and these people I'm 54. I've had 54 years of life. I've dated some really smoking hot women, and I've driven fast cars, and I've flown in airplanes, and I've been on TV, and I've done things that were important to me. Your set of values are likely very different, and hopefully are different. But if you can check off on your list the things that you've achieved, and you think about all the people in history who've died before they were even, died in childhood, died before they were old enough to reproduce. You're the product of survivors going back all the way. That's an amazing thought if you think about it. And so appreciation for your life and what you've achieved gives you a sense of looking at the flip side of all the things I wanted to do and never got to do kind of thing. There's all the things I did do. And I think everybody should be living their life that way. And if you get down to it, really, it doesn't have to be these big, fame and fortune things. They were important to me because it's the path I wanted to follow. So, but everybody has their own path, and everybody has their own milestones on that path. If you opened a business, that's a huge thing. Maybe you paid somebody's paycheck. That's remarkable. It's an achievement. It really is. And if you can get into a place where you understand all the achievements of your life and your children, family, all that stuff, people, teachers, whatever it is, military, defended your country, and you signed on the dotted line. You took a risk that puts you in the same category of heroes, of people that I'll never be. I'll never be that guy. Always wanted to be, and I never will. I'll never be able to say that. Bottom line is never good enough to be a pilot for the U.S. military. So there's that. And then I think the other thing, too, is in terms of a fear, I think you really do need to walk it in small doses. I think when you're dealing with a real big fear or a regular fear, I think you really have to go at this like you're going into the swimming pool. It's really cold. The two schools of thought are one little step at a time or the giant leap. And I actually am one of those small steps at a time thing. I'll put my toes in until they warm up, and then I go up to my kneecaps, and it's time consuming and it's hard. It's probably the sissy way to do it, but that's how I am. I think what you're really trying to do here with the fear is you're trying to get the fear in limited doses so that you become, you develop a kind of an immunity to it, right? People who, the people who handle snakes, for example. There was a guy at Serpent World, or Serpentarium, Miami Serpentarium. He'd been handling poisonous snakes his entire life, and apparently he'd get bitten by rattlesnakes and not even feel it. Cobras. He built up such a resistance and immunity to snake venom. So I think what you do if you have a particular fear is you take it in little doses. If it's a fear of spiders, I think what you really need to do is, go find spiders with somebody who you trust and who you feel strongly with, and look at them from a distance and spend some time looking at them and take a step closer to them and not run out in panic. And I think you can actually get acclimated to this sort of thing. I know one thing. I've been very fortunate with this. I've had a chance, and I don't know, it must be something about my personality or something, but I've had a chance to take several people flying, a couple times in gliders and many times in my little airplane. Desensitization is the term. Thanks, Viper. I've taken a lot of people for airplane rides from people who are really scared to be flying, and I don't even know why they agreed to do it. It must be something that gave them a sense of confidence. But you occasionally hear stories about people who are pilots who have a passenger who's really scared, and they give them the plane's crashing kind of thing. Those people ought to be taken out and beaten, really, not to death, but enough so that they don't do it again. When I take people to fly, everybody, but especially people who are afraid to fly, no matter who I'm taking to fly for the first time, I tell them everything that's going on, and I tell them what's going to happen. I'll say, when we're on climb out, for example, I'll say, okay, so we're at 500 feet, so we're going to raise the flaps, and you'll feel the plane settle just a little bit, feel a little tiny little settling, and the flaps come up and they feel that. And when we're getting ready to go in the takeoff, in the run-up, I've spent a lot of time on this. I'll say, okay, so what we're going to do now is we've got dual electronic controls on this airplane, dual electrical controls, I should say. They're called magnetos, and what that means is that as long as the engine is turning, it's going to make a spark. On your car engine, if you lose your battery, if the electrical system goes out, the engine stops running. But a magneto means as long as there's engine is turning, it's going to make its own spark for the spark plugs. And we have two of those. We have two completely independent systems. I'm saying all this through my headsets. And I said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn one of them off now. And you'll hear the engine come down just a little bit. So we're working on the other one. That's good. Turn the first one back on. Now we'll turn the other one off. Yeah, good. A little bit of a drop. It's what you'd expect, but they're both working independently so that one can fail. Let's turn on our auxiliary fuel pump. Now, we have an auxiliary fuel pump because there's a pump on the engine that's turned by the motion of the engine turning, but that pump runs all the time, and if that pump should fail, there won't be fuel getting to the engine, and the engine will stop running pretty quickly. So we have a second pump, a backup pump. It's an electrical pump, and we turn it on for takeoffs and for landings. And so we're going to turn it on now so that if the main pump fails, we got a backup pump running. And I'm always ready for every landing and every takeoff. I say usually takeoff. I'll say, and frankly, I prepare every takeoff to have an engine failure at the worst possible moment. Every time I take off from a runway, I expect the engine to fail at the worst possible place. So as we're doing the takeoff roll, I'm going to tell you what I would do if we were to lose the engine on a takeoff. This is how I learned. This is how I learned how to fly from flight instructors who did this in gliders, because we would have to be ready for rope break. A rope break is 100 times, 1,000 times more likely than an engine failure, so we had to be prepared for power loss at the worst possible time in a glider takeoff. So we start down the runway. Okay, here we go. Ready? Full power. You ready to go? Here we go. Okay, and the engine gauges are good. They're right where we want them to be. Here comes our airspeed. Airspeed's live at 40 knots. There's 50, 55, little bit of back pressure, back pressure. Here we go, and we're off. Fantastic. Right now, if we lose the engine, we're going to land straight ahead. Going to land straight ahead on the runway, Okay, we're too high for the runway. I'm going to put her down in that field over there on the left now. Field on the left. There's 500-600 feet. Now I'm high enough so that if we got in trouble, I could make a safe turn back and we'd go back and land on the runway. Now at 500 feet, we can turn off the auxiliary fuel pump, because if the engine fails now, we got time to turn that pump back on again. And by doing all this stuff, what the people you would think they would be more afraid because you're talking about failures and catastrophes, but they're thinking about failures and catastrophe anyway. And so what you're really doing is you're telling them it's not just you who's worried about the plane coming out of the sky. It's me. I'm worried about it all the time. And here's what we're doing to make sure that doesn't happen. And for some reason or another, that has a magical effect on people. And been many times in a commercial jet, I've been flying with somebody who's nervous, and stuff. And you can tell they're really nervous. And I'll say, okay, we're going to take off, right? And so if the engine fails now, we're just going to keep climbing. And you'll hear a little thump because they're bringing up the landing gear. They don't know what that thump is. Many people who fly irregularly think that thump is something hit the airplane or there's something wrong. And you tell them things like, there's never been an airplane in the modern era, in the jet era, there's never been an airplane that fell apart because of turbulence, because it can't. The plane cannot come apart in turbulence. The plane is certified to take the kind of loads that the atmosphere cannot dish out. Those of you who are pilots out there, that's as long as you're flying in the green arc. But when you run into turbulence, you get it down to the green arc. So the plane simply will fall out of the sky before it'll break. That's what they're designed to do. The wing is designed to stall before it'll snap the wing. So it's never happened. And you'd say to people, have you ever been in a boat in the ocean? Large boat? Yep. Have you ever worried that the waves would smash the boat? No. You worry the boat maybe turn over. So you never worry that the boat will just come apart because of the waves, right? No, because boats are designed to take the waves, right? Yep. Airplanes the same way. And those things really help. And so what happens is you give people a sense that they do have something to do with it, that they're involved in the process, and then they know that somebody's thinking about it, and they get a lot better. And so what that really means, though, Adam, is that means they have a flight where they're not worried. And every single one of those flights with people who've told me in advance that they really get freaked out in airplanes, I say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to taxi, and then we're going to start our takeoff, and I can abort the takeoff up to a certain point. And if you're not happy, you let me know. We'll just abort the takeoff. It's perfectly safe, 100% safe, and we will just taxi back to the runway. But once we do the takeoff, we're going to be committed to be in the air for about 3 or 4 minutes. That's how long it's going to take me to get around the pattern and bring you back again. We understand this before we go? Absolutely. Here we go. We'll start the takeoff. Said, how you feeling? Doing good. Great. We'll keep climbing. Doing good? Yep. All right, we're going to go around. You want to get us back? No, I'm okay. I'm actually okay. Next thing you know, these people want to go, they want to do wingovers because they're so elated as a matter of just not being so scared. So I would say incremental doses of desensitization, Adam, and depending on how serious the fear is, an appreciation for how much you've achieved. If somebody's afraid of skydiving, you don't probably want to start the conversation by saying, well, you've led a good life anyway. But it helps me. So 3 to go.